Welcome to the GTM Vault podcast. I'm your host, Rick Koleta, and today we're joined by Ayush Khanna, the new ventures lead at Superset, a startup studio focused on building transformative data and AI companies. With experience founding and building 4 B2B SaaS startups across various sectors, Ayush has a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities in scaling new ventures. In this episode, we dive into his approach to founding startups, leading investments, and shaping the future of data and AI. Ayush, thanks for being here.
Hey, Rick, nice to be here.
We were just talking that you're coming off of a 36-hour fast. Why would you do something like that?
And I didn't think you'd bring it up. I wish I had a profound reason, but it just feels really good. I fast intermittently. I usually do a 16-8 split, which means fasting for 16 hours, eating in an 8-hour window. My girlfriend hates it. She's been trying to force feed me breakfast. I like doing shock to the system. Whenever I feel I'm getting too comfortable, a long fast helps me reset my body and mind. I sleep better. I have more focus. I have better focus, which is such a contradiction. I would recommend that you try it.
For sure, yeah. I've actually been experimenting with juicing myself, where I'll go without eating any food for like 2 days, just juices, and I do feel a lot better.
You look great too. Let me tell you that.
I love the new haircut. So, Ayush,
pleasantries.
What inspired you to focus on data and AI when founding startups, and how did this lead you to Superset?
Yeah, well, thinking back, I've always worked in data. I have a technical degree in computer engineering. And then when I was a consultant at ZS and Deloitte, my job was to help sales and marketing teams basically use data for decision making. I built business intelligence tools for them using MicroStrategy and Tableau, and this was really early in the teens. And use this data for compensation planning, for analytics, and I figured out how businesses, in this case sales and marketing teams, can use data as a powerful lever for making important decisions. Then I went for an MBA, and after my MBA I joined Salesforce on the platform team, where I built a logging solution, our own logging solution. And I saw the vast amount of data that was being generated by the platform. And it wasn't just vast, it was exposure to data streaming. I got exposure to cloud, unstructured data, search through Elasticsearch. And I really felt out of my depths. Like the whole paradigm had shifted from transactional database doing business intelligence to this new big data paradigm. And I felt out of my depths initially, but I realized that this is the direction that I want to work towards and I want to learn. It's the same with AI. At Salesforce, I work with a team building recommendation systems for our customers. And I realized how that self-reinforcing loop in AI makes your product better and the product stickier and reinforces the moat. So when Superset reached out, it was actually a very simple decision. There are 3 reasons why I had to join them. So the first was, there is a data and AI focus to all of our startups. I'll give you an example. Even Boombox. Boombox is a music collaboration platform. And when you think music, you don't think data. And that's not the first thing that comes to mind. But believe me, it's the underlying business model and the value that Boombox brings is by its production and usage of data. And then, of course, Tom and Vivek, who are the founders and general partners at Superset, they built Crux before that. So when I was researching their background in the product, I realized Crux is essentially a data product. They sold Crux to Salesforce in, I think, 2016. It was a $1 billion exit. And I just couldn't miss out the chance to learn from them and sit with them day to day. And then talking about like startup studios, I think the speed of learning and execution at a studio is far anything else. And I'm extremely curious as a person, so learning is so important to me, and that's why I joined Superset.
Can you walk us through your role as new ventures lead at Superset? Talk us through some of your key responsibilities and challenges.
Yeah, well, it's a very unique role. I love talking about it and people saying, whoa, that's so interesting. And it's so unique. When I was interviewing, I was trying to make my decision, but on Superset, there was no reference there. I couldn't talk to anybody about this role. So I had to understand the risks and make a bet on it intrinsically. In a nutshell, this role blends the best parts about being an investor, a founder, and a builder. So I kind of get exposure to all 3 aspects and all 3 roles. And I get to talk to each of the people who do these things as them. So I understand what they're thinking, what problems they face, and how to talk to them. So what do I do as a new ventures lead? So I'll walk you through the whole process of starting a new venture at Superset. So typically we explore multiple market theses, and these could be in different spaces such as DevOps and RevOps and ad tech at the same time. So roughly, I'm exploring 3 to 5 market theses but in any particular given time. I'm really trying to understand what the market is, what is the problem that the customers are facing, what is that persona, who are the players. After this, I follow a funnel approach where I want to whittle down the thesis into a few select ideas. So let's say I pick 2 ideas. I select 2 ideas from all the thesis that I've built and all the markets I've analyzed. And in this ideation phase, I'm trying to figure out if this is problem that is big enough and do we want to solve this problem, and how would we solve this problem? Does this fit Superset? Is this a data and AI solution? And then after validating a few ideas and testing them with customers, with executives, I typically whittle down them into one startup that we end up launching. And I'm, as the new ventures lead, I help build the prototype, I build the MVP, I go to market, and it's almost like doing 0 to 1 as a founder. So I move from being an investor to a founder role. And at the same time, as I'm building the startup and building and going to market, I'm also building the team. So we hire head of product, head of engineering, key first engineers, designers. And then once the team is in place, I transition the idea and the start with them. And then I repeat the whole process again. Now challenges. Now it's a very unique role, as you can understand. So the challenges are pretty unique too. So the first thing I tell anybody who asks me about this job is I say there's no victory in this job. This role has no win. Starting a company is not a victory, right? That is the easiest part. So you really have to love the process. You have to love learning. You have to love exploring new ideas and connecting the dots. Because if you find joy in that, this role, you'll have a lot of fun in this role. But you don't expect like you close the sale or you have a company exit. When the company exits, you'll be known for it. The second challenge of this role is you have to go both deep and broad on multiple spaces, right? I'm synthesizing multiple ideas at the same time, often that are conflicting with each other. I'm looking at data points, talking to buyers and talking to executives, and I have to make sense of all of this input. I have to synthesize all of this input for multiple spaces in a given point in time. So you have to have that ability to go deep and broad in different spaces. And then, of course, don't fall in love with the idea. It's your baby until you realize it's not going to work out, and then you have to drop it and dump it in the trash. That's a bad example. You have to not fall in love with the idea because you have to be able to slash and burn and cut your losses when you realize it's not a good idea. So, and it's hard, I can tell you from experience. So that's the third challenge of this role. But doing this role has helped me build some very unique skills. The first one is, of course, I think I've gotten much better at building a thesis and validating it quickly. I can look at diverse problem spaces, and the goal is, can I kill something in 3 minutes instead of taking 3 months to validate it? Right? Save myself time and effort, and also have the opportunity cost of not to get something else. And this is something that my friend Mark Fernandez, he's the managing director at Sierra Ventures, he talks about. He says, the best thing you do is save time by killing bad ideas early. The second skill I've developed through this role is learning to speak to executives, CXOs, working technology, revenue, marketing, ads, security. I've had deep interactions with so many CXOs that I've become better at talking their language and understanding their problems. So it's helped me learn about their persona. It's helped me learn how to sell to executives, to build partnerships with these executives, and most of all, to excite them to join you, because you're going to be successful if your team is very excited to work with you. As a startup, you're not paying them all the big Google bucks. You have to have passion. And the final skill that I've developed, I think, is discernment. As I said, after I start a company, I build the team. So I've till date done, I think, more than 200 interviews for heads of product, head of engineering. And I feel I've gotten good at discernment and selection of people, and knowing very early on in the interview who are the ones that will make successful founders and co-founders. So I think these are all the challenges and the unique responsibilities and skills that are through this role.
Can you talk to us about some of the experiences you've learned founding for B2B SaaS startups?
So founding these 4 startups has actually also made me a better investor today. And this is because first, I've built a network of CXOs in security, engineering, marketing, revenue. I can speak the language. I'm much better at doing business development. I can establish trust. So it's important, I think, to know who are the customers of your customers so you can be a better investor. Second is I've lived with founders and I lived as a founder at 24/7 at Superset. I spend my time with co-founders of other portfolio companies. I speak their language. I understand what they do day to day. And I honestly feel that makes me a better investor because I understand how startups are built between the quarterly board meetings, not just at the 3-hour board meeting every quarter. Honestly, like I've seen startups being built on Fridays at 10 p.m. And I'd like to give a quick shout out to my co-founder, Gal at Checksum. It's an automated QM platform using generative AI. One day before Independence Day holiday, I went back to the office after dinner. It was, I think, 8 p.m. Everyone was home. Except I saw this little screen in the corner throwing light at someone, and I went over and with Gal. And he wanted to wrap this one thing up for a customer before he left on a vacation because he said he wouldn't be able to sleep otherwise. So that's the dedication commitment that founders have and something that most investors don't get to see. So appreciating it, I think, makes me a better investor today. The other one is idea selection. You have to be quick at selecting ideas because you can spend months or weeks on a bad idea. Even if you don't admittedly invest, it's an opportunity cost. So the way you kind of validate ideas as a founder is also a good way to validate ideas and thesis as a investor, right? Are you solving a problem that is a vitamin versus a painkiller? It should be a painkiller. Like you don't want to invest in vitamin problems. And then is the solution going to be data and AI solution as we in Superset like to build? So does the solution that you solve to that problem, does it fit your area of competence? And also discernment. Like I said earlier, I've interviewed 200 candidates so far of executive candidates. So that's made me better at discerning very quickly who's the founder who will stick through the harder times. Yeah, so it's been a very enriching experience over the last 2.5 years starting these companies.
How do you approach sourcing startups in pre-seed and seed stages?
Yeah, that's the billions and billions dollar question, right? Sourcing is so important in venture capital, especially in the early stages when you don't have a lot of financial signals and there's so many more startups. So having seen both sides, being founded in VC, I prefer the inbound versus the outbound sourcing approach. And they're different approaches. They both have their own benefits. And I think you both have to do both as an investor. But if you're building towards something, you have to build towards having opportunities and sourcing come to you, right? And the way I like to do that is what I call the 3 C's. I call them content, community, and competence. So content, right? Put your thesis out there, right? Put some content out there about what you're thinking, publicize your thesis. And you do this for a few reasons. One, you want to test it, right? Sunlight is the best disinfectant. If you're thinking crypto, that Dogecoin will save the federal bank, like you want to put your thesis out there and let people test it and comment on it and listen to that feedback. The second is to educate. A lot of founders or potential founders are trying to learn about a particular space and learning about the market, learning about the players in that market or problems that buyers are facing. And if you can put out content that educates them, then they're automatically building relationships that add value. And the third one is, of course, attract, right? You want to attract founders and startups who are working on the problem that aligns with their thesis and aligns with your way of thinking about that thesis, right? So I think quality of sourcing is so important as compared to quantity of sourcing. So I would say publish high quality original content and make it so that the founders come to you for advice. They understand that you know and understand the space so that they can come to you for actual advice and not you hitting them up with 5 cold emails a day. And then of course, like once they come to you for advice, one conversation leads to another conversation, as Tom says. And I have an example about this. I was building a thesis on retail media and I published a lot of content around what I was thinking. And I got an inbound from this startup that was doing something different. They just wanted to know a small part of what I was doing or for what I was saying about retail media because they wanted to get into retail, but they were actually a different ad tech product. And as I had that chat with them, I started digging deeper and talking to them about something else or generative AI and advertisement. And I think they're a great company. I'd love to invest in them. I wish I could give them a shout out. I haven't asked them, so I won't do that. But I'm still talking to them. So conversation leads to another conversation, good content, high quality original content brings in incredible founders to you. The second C was community. So the community you can form, and I think you know this better than a lot of other people, that communities can be so important. You can form it around a specific vertical, such as healthcare or functions such as finance, You can form it around technology, generative AI communities are huge right now, or even a stage, right? Early stage founders or Series A founders. Why do you want to form community? The first thing is you want to introduce founders to other founders, right? You want to build this community where people can come together, they can talk about the problems they're facing, they can bond. You can even introduce founders to like customers, which can be incredible. That's one of the hardest problems that founders have early on, is finding their first customers, early customers, to make a bet on them. So having that interaction face to face is incredibly value adding to them. And then you can also introduce them to experts. So if you have five data engineering experts or top class data engineers in a network, just host an event or build a community around them and let other people learn from them, and they also get exposure to other startups that are things. So the way I like to do community and form community is through interesting intersectional topics. So not just one topic, but how does it intersect with something else? Like how does generative AI intersect with finance, right? And you can try different things. We've demos and spotlights on startups, and you never know how it pays off. It will pay off later. It's a slow process, but it's interesting things that happened when we've done communities. For example, this company that I'm friends with, the founder that I'm friends with, it's a company called N Factor. The founder came to one of our events at Superset, and we were just chatting. And he invited a few other people to events, and he met his other co-founder at that event. This happened 3 months ago. I met with them last Friday, and they're just doing great because they're such a good match. And that's not an outcome I had expected from our event, but I'm sure, as I work with them, they're going to be much more. They're going to be a much better company and more a higher probability of success because of that match. And the final thing, and the final C is competence. So I think competence comes from the foundation that no founder will want to talk to you if they don't think you're competent in what you're talking about or the community that you're running, right? Founder time is the most important, the most valuable resource. And so if you can play the expert role or the operator role, and you can give advice based on your competence, based on experience, that is another way to approach sourcing startups from an inbound tactic.
I like that approach. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Amongst all the startups that you meet, Ayush, how do you evaluate which ones have high potential at an early stage?
Isn't that the biggest problem right now with the hype cycle, right? The AI hype cycle means you're gonna have it's causing an even bigger discernment problem. So the first way discernment has to starting with us as investors, starting with prepared mind. It's a concept that I think Excel came up with, and I really believe in it because you got to understand the problem, the market, the solution space before you even start evaluating an opportunity. An example is we explored fintech for a few months at Superset, and we tested multiple ideas in fintech: instant payments, embedded finance, decision modeling for risk. And we didn't actually invest instantly in fintech. We shelved it. But then this startup approached us, and they were doing embedded banking in nonprofits. And because we had done all the work in fintech, we already had ideas on their risks and challenges and strengths. So we were able to make a very fast decision, and we made the investment decision. So starting with prepared mind, first of all. And then how do you evaluate startups? So I evaluate startups first on the founder personality and then on the business. So the founder personality that I love is what I call a lovable shark. So a lovable shark is a founder who their customers love them. The team loves them. They absolutely would die for them, right? And they're lovely people to be around. But under the surface, they can make hard decisions very quickly, and they can cut their losses if they need to. So they got to have a little bit of shock in there. And it's easy to test, right? You can ask them about the difficult decisions they made. You can ask about their journey. You have to know that it's not been all rainbows and butterflies for them. So a lovable shark personality is my archetype of founder that I love to invest in. The second thing I want from this founder is a key insight, right? They should understand the problem they're solving inside out, and they should have one key insight that gives them confidence, right? That they are they're uniquely solving this problem. They have to have a grand vision, and they have to be able to explain that vision very simply. The third thing is I heard this term a long time back, but I love it. It's called stay in thereedness. So the founders that I love have to have a stay in thereedness, because they have to persevere through difficult times. They have to almost thrive under pressure, because it will be hard. However awesome your product is, however unique your insight is, however much your customers and team love you, you will face difficult times. So you have to have a stay in thereedness. And then evaluating the business. It's still early in the seed and the pre-seed stage, so you don't have a lot of signals. So I like using the decision tree that Ulu Ventures uses. It has 4 parameters: market, product, team, and financial. And we can go into detail another time. It's very thorough. There's a lot of parameters to assess these criteria for a startup. And it helps you essentially create a decision tree by assigning weightage. So it makes it simple. It quantifies something that's actually qualitative, but it's the easiest way to test the business and make the decision on selection.
You've conducted over 12 sector scans to create architectures and opportunity assessments. Can you share your process on building these and how it informs your investment decisions?
Yeah, so the way I build thesis and make the investment decisions, actually, it comes from product training. So I was a product manager at Salesforce, right? And I've understood and learned how to work backwards from the customer problem, right? And I think that should be a mandatory skill for investors, right? Understanding the top key pain points for the customers of the startups that you're investing in, or the market that you're assessing. So, the first thing you ask is, what is the problem? What is the intensity of this problem? Right? Earlier we talked about painkillers versus vitamin. You have to evaluate why now, right? What changed? And typically, I think what changes are one of 3 things. Either there's a technical shift, for example, now generative AI, right? Or there's an industry shift. For example, there's a dominant player, or there's fragmentation, or there is a customer shift, right? Customers want something different. I'll give you an example of a company we started called Superset. So it was an ad tech company that used generative AI for creating different versions of ad creatives and testing them out on social channels, and it was a closed loop optimization basically of creatives, and that wouldn't have been possible without a technology shift. The why now was generative AI, right? And that opened up a whole problem space to us that wasn't possible before. So you have to understand the problem and the intensity of the problem and the why now. The second thing you want to ask yourself is, what is the size of this problem, and is it growing or is it slowing? Right? You don't want to invest in a slowing space, or where this problem size is already so massive that it's attracted a lot of competitors. I like what Peter Thiel says, like you should have a market of $0 billion when you start, because then you're the first one to solve it. And then it should be growing fast. The third way I kind of build my thesis and make investment decision is I interview customers who are operators, typically CXOs, CTOs, and based on the company I'm starting. I interview these customers because I want to have a first-hand understanding of their priorities and what is important to them, and will the solution that I'm thinking actually address their needs. And then, of course, like the fourth is at Superset, because we invest in data and AI companies, I want to know if the problem that we're trying to solve is it solved by a data and AI solution. For example, we would never build a Notion or a Slack because they're not data products. They are workflow, or not even workflow. They're more UX products. So I need to understand. I need to know whether the solution relies on data and AI as a key differentiator. And then, of course, I've also put on my consulting hat. I test for market players. Are they dominant? Are there network effects? What are the barriers to entry into this market? How has the market size changed? What are other startups doing? Not just the dominant players, but other startups that are starting in this space. How are they different? What are their approaches? And then finally, the fit. I think the secret sauce. So I need to know, like, what would be the secret sauce of the founder and the company fit that solves this problem. And not every founder who starts a company will be the right person to solve that problem. So product training, working from the customer backwards, putting on my consultant hat, and then making sure there's a fit between the founder and the company is how I kind of evaluate the thesis and understand and make my investment decisions.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your strategy behind launching the Superset community effort?
Yeah, well, that's been the most exciting thing I've done this year, I think, has been launching community efforts. Honestly, we did it because community is part of the 3Cs, right? It's great for sourcing. There's at Superset, source talent, we source startups, and also joy. Like, it gives us joy because at our core, we're all builders at Superset, right? We build startups, build companies, we're operators. So we like being around other builders and sharing experiences and giving them advice and talking to them and listening to them and getting their feedback. So communities played a very important role and been an important pillar for Superset. I used to love going to events after work, and I think one of those events is where I met you, right? Last TechCrunch this stuff. I still remember that meeting. And then, if you remember, like I invited you to our office and we jammed on a few ideas. So I love going to events after work, meeting startups, forming relationship with founders, learning what's hot in the market, what are the smartest people in the world working on. And then as I was like going to all of these events, I started thinking, why not bring them into our office? Right? Why not do our own events? And so what I did was I first started small. At that point, I was exploring fintech. This is late last year. I was exploring the fintech space, and I had gone to a couple of events. And shout out to Sheila. She runs the fintech next community. So what I did was I hosted our first event, which is in collaboration with Sheila. We had panels. And, we had sushi. So we started small. We leveraged an existing network to found our community of builders and founders. And then what we did was after doing a few iterations of these small fintech events, we started doing more targeted outbound. So as we figured out what are the kind of people we want at our events, we used LinkedIn and a tool called Rift to execute a targeted outbound campaign to invite the right people to these events. And we were extremely selective in who we wanted at these events. And once we had enough events under our belt, we encouraged them to subscribe to our events so they could be part, they could know and be aware of the next upcoming events and subscribe to our calendars on. And Loom was a great tool that we found to host events and engage with subscribers. And then once we had these subscribers, we also developed some engaging content. We send our newsletter and blogs to all of our subscribers. I think we have more than 1,000 now to our Superset community. And this has helped us build a very curated community of people who want to be with Superset, engage with Superset, eventually be part of Superset that we want to work with. So this has been our strategy in launching our community efforts. And now the result is we went from a monthly small event fintech to now we have 2 to 3 events every month. And, I think we've been featured in the San Francisco featured events 5 times. And, we had the same founders and same talent come into our events multiple times. So it's become a place for them to come and build relationships. Like I mentioned earlier, we've done co-founder matching inadvertently, but it's amazing how that played out. And we also need a lot of executive buyers to our startups, to startups we want to work with. Our portfolio companies also benefits from exposure that they get at these events. So communities have been great for all of these reasons. Shout out to a tool run by a friend. It's called Rift, Get Rift. And it's great for targeted outbound, warming up your domain. They're not paying me for this and I'm no investment in them. So yeah, if anybody's thinking of starting an event and just starting a community, I'll just say start small, right? Just find your rhythm, find what works for you, find a topic that you're interested in and a network that you can tap to talk about that topic or build a community around in that topic. And I'd also like to shout out to my teammates, Casey, Maxwell, and Kat. They actually do all of the work, not even most, do all of the work in our community efforts, and we all get the benefits of that.
That's great. Yeah, and I want to just say thanks again for the phenomenal collaboration we had with you and the Superset team when we did GTM Nights 3 at your office, and it was just a phenomenal evening.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a great time too. That was a busy week, but I think having you guys, and I think you have a great community of GTM pros, having them come in, give us feedback on the idea, demoing with them, and also just interacting with them. I'm still in touch with so many of those folks I met at your event.
Glad to hear. In your previous roles at Salesforce and in management consulting, what key lessons did you learn that have influenced your approach to product and business development?
Yeah, I'd say Salesforce and the consulting experience, they led me to where I am today. I think the new ventures lead role, is a blend of the qualifications are product and consulting. So as a consultant first, I learned 3 things. I learned the customer focus. We call them clients in consulting, but just like the extreme focus on solving their problem, understanding their problem, like talking to the customer and our clients, and living their life. It was incredible. It was an incredible learning experience in consulting. The second thing I learned in consulting is how to roll up your sleeves. Like you don't have 50 people working for you. You don't have any engineers. You have to do everything from collecting data to building presentations, to delivering presentations, to doing customer interviews. You have to roll up your sleeves as a consultant. And the third thing is how to use data effectively and how to draw insights and analytics out of that data. As I mentioned, my consulting was primarily data and business intelligence. So I learned these very critical skills as a consultant. And then when I went to Salesforce after my MBA, I started a couple of 0 to 1 projects. Almost as what we call an entrepreneur. I started our healthcare vertical in Commerce Cloud, and I also launched a feature called encryption at rest, which a lot of my customers are demanding, were asking for. And so this 0 to 1 experience I got twice made me a better new ventures lead at Superset, and it helped me understand how revenue is developed. How do you do business development in a startup in B2B SaaS, right? What does the revenue machine look like? And I can tell anybody listening to this, Salesforce has probably the best well-oiled machine in revenue across any B2B SaaS company that I've seen. I, as a product manager, had to focus on a very narrow piece. And then, the PMMs took over, the general manager took over, sales, enablement, everything was just so well-oiled. I didn't have to worry about any of that. So it made my life easier and made launching new products easier. But I got to understand this machine very intimately by working with them when I did a few 0 to 1s. And I also worked with 10x engineers. You meet, there are so many engineers in the area, but when you get that 10x engineers, you can see that it's very evident, and sometimes very hard to work with, but that's great because you get challenged and you feel nothing. So all of the shortcomings are very evident, but working with the 10x engineers, 100x engineers at Salesforce was a huge unlock, and it showed me how you can build products very effectively. So yeah, I think all of this together led me to Superset.
And as someone who has built several companies across different industries, how do you see the role of AI evolving in B2B SaaS, and particularly in the sectors you're focusing on?
Yeah, well, I think now when anyone says AI, it generally means generative AI. So I focus on that. And we've been building pieces in generative AI for more than a year now. At Superset. I remember it was December 2022 when I gave my first presentation, and it's evolved a lot since then. The primary use case I see today for AI in B2B SaaS is what I call the low risk, high volume use case. So I like to qualify AI use cases into risk and volume, right? It's like a 2x2, like a typical PCG 2x2. And the highest impact that AI is making today is on the low risk, high volume use cases. And then use cases such as customer success or creative tasks or analytics with a human in the loop. So I see like the impact of AI in B2B SaaS in two ways. One, it's on the actual application. And the second impact is on how they are built. Right? On the actual application, the impact of AI is only additive. It hasn't changed the workflow. And as founders, I think this is important. Don't shortchange the workflow. Don't shortchange the customer needs. AI is not going to solve all the problems. AI should be added on top, not be the product itself, right? So in applications, what I've realized with AI now, data is becoming even more important. So you have to figure out how do you capture data, how do you use data effectively, how do you use data for reinforcement, and this is all in making your AI better, right? New products will be built around collecting data. And I have a hot take. I think ChatGPT for consumers was actually meant for free data collection. I think that thumbs up, thumbs down they have at the to the responses. They were able to collect free feedback from 100 million users that had them improve the models. So it's just surprising people now pay $20 a month. But I think Sam Altman is smart. He said, let's launch this product and use free labor to make our product better instead of paying $2 an hour that they pay to the data supply chain. So the first thing that changes is now data has become more critical. Right? The second thing that changes is a human in the loop workflow will become the new the new way of designing a workflow. So AI will be embedded in the SaaS application workflows, and there will be a human in the loop to perform certain tasks. Right? Humans won't be eliminated completely. AI will do 100% end to end. A human in the loop is my thesis around AI in the new B2B SaaS using AI. For example, let's take two examples. Let's say applications that are analytical, right? Like logging solution like Datadog. So AI will perform 75% of the tasks, but you'll still need human oversight and human editing, right? Because the AI output is still probabilistic, and human will need to check the output of AI. So in log analytics, what I've seen is you'll have AI synthesizing multiple log lines, multiple data points, and compiling all of these weird signals from strange signals from logs into a human readable text format saying, it looks like your performance is decreasing or your CPUs are overloaded, right? and then they will surface this insight in natural language to humans, and humans will have to dive in if they want to. If there's something critical, they have to dive in, understand go to the root cause, go to the actual data points, but they don't have to continuously oversee all of these log lines and try to analyze that data. But if you think about creative tasks, for example, producing content, I think what will happen is there will be human direction at first, right? A lot of it, what we call prompt engineering, could be prompt engineering, reinforcement, giving the right data to AI, or creating the first draft of a certain creative. So I think for creative applications, humans will give the direction, but AI will be used for scaling. Right, taking that same content and personalizing it for different audiences, translating it to different languages, right, creating 10 versions of the same content. That is what AI will be used for. So I think analytical workflows and creative workflows will have different ways to use AI, but it'll definitely be a human in the loop kind of a workflow. Now we're talking about AI, I know, and AI is different from agents, but I also want to give a quick shout out to what I think the role of agents. Agents basically replace human tasks. They do an action through reasoning and use LM in the backend to look at data and do the reasoning. I think agents will reduce the cognitive and the physical workload on humans, so that humans can not have to press all the buttons or type all the keys. Instead, humans can play that human in the loop, the oversight, editing kind of a role, right? So it's not just AI, but I think agents itself will play a huge role in the new B2B SaaS applications. So what does this mean? This means reinforcement learning will become more important, right? So I'm working with this company called Nfactor. What they do is AI for security. So you want to respond to RFPs. If you're in the sales process, you understand that that huge problem of having a lot of RFPs. Your security needs to respond to. They need to fill out all these questionnaires, and it's a huge blocker to your sales cycle. And Nfactor is resolving that using a reasoning LLM that looks at all of your data, all of your security and monitoring data, and using agents to fill out these responses, right? So at the end of the day, you can see that these AI and agents, it's all a real problem. They're not just a gimmick, but I think a human in the workflow will be critical. And then the second point was how startups are built. So not diving too deep into it because it's a lot about the tooling, but I think SaaS applications, B2B SaaS applications, will be easier to build using AI, right? Everything is getting extracted. Your application development is getting extracted with coding platforms that can write code by itself. I don't know if you've seen the new Claude demo, but you can make simple apps such as Splitwise, or you can make financial apps, or you can make marketing apps just by writing simple text, and it spits out the code and even spits out the app. So I think making B2B SaaS applications, making any applications, but B2B SaaS as well, becomes so much easier that even AI is going to be abstracted through AI. So there will be a lot of point solutions for every problem, right? So it'll be tougher for the buyer to understand which is the right solution for them. But this is an opportunity for tooling companies, right? Tooling companies, how do you make developing developing B2B SaaS applications easier? How do you make moving data around easier? How do you make integrating AI into B2B SaaS applications easier? So I think this whole B2B SaaS, the transformation with AI, also affects how they build. And there's a huge opportunity for, you can call them, DevOps and MLOps tools to come in and help B2B SaaS platforms go to market and build applications faster.
And do you have any advice to founders who are looking to build and scale in the B2B SaaS space in today's competitive landscape?
Yeah, so, kind of taking forward what we discussed, since it becomes easier to build B2B SaaS applications, it becomes harder to differentiate and harder to scale. So there are a few successful strategies that I've seen founders adopt. The first one is building in public. You want advocates. The more advocates you get, the better the flywheel, and it's easier to scale. I've seen a lot of startups now build in public. An example of that is my friend Kritika Mehta. She runs a company called Butternut. She founded a startup called Butternut, which helps you build good-looking websites within a few seconds using generative AI. Right. Another startup is RB2B. People have very different opinions of that company and the founder, but one thing you can't ignore is RB2B on LinkedIn. So, using content, community is whatever you want to use, but building in public, being out there, even before your product is ready or perfect, that's a huge, huge way to differentiate. That's a great success strategy. And I think last I heard from Kritika about Butternut, they had thousands and I think hundreds of thousands of websites they had launched using Butternut. And this has been in less than 1 year. The second advice is do more with less, right? Because it is getting easier to build, you don't need a 20%, 30% engineering team or sales team or marketing team, right? The best products will be built by a small team that is agile, right? You want to constantly find the problem. You want to find different solutions to that problem. You want to test the solutions and you want to be able to pivot, right? Until you land on that fit where your market is pulling the product out of you and you need people to scale, don't hire too many people. It's very easy to build an application these days. So you can do a lot more with less. And I watched this talk by Mark Zuckerberg, where he said when he started Facebook, he did not know how to build a million people community, right? He learned it as he built Facebook. He started off very small, 3 people in a dorm building something just for Harvard. So that's the approach that I think founders need to take, even for B2B SaaS. Related to that is just build. Don't wait for perfection. Perfection will come from iteration. And there's a study that was done once where 2 sets of students were asked to paint a drawing, paint a painting, and one was asked to paint 10 times the same painting and improve. The other one was given 10 days to make the perfect painting. And guess which one got the best painting at the end? Right? So just build, right? Don't wait for people, just go to market. And then you can iterate once you're in the market. And I'll say something that sounds different. I'll say ignore AI at first. Even in a B2B SaaS startup, do everything by hand. Because as soon as you start integrating it and making that the cornerstone of your product, you focus so much on AI, you forget the workflow and the problem. What you want to be doing is testing the problem and building the workflow very cheaply. AI is going to be the easiest bit that you do, honestly, right? Unless if you're building a foundational model, which B2B SaaS companies, most of them aren't. You want to solve a problem for the customer. Your AI can be, your co-founders sitting in the garage at night, punching the recommendations manually. Follow that at first. Build the AI once you know you're solving a real problem. So that's, I think, what I've seen be successful in building and scaling B2B SaaS startups these days.
I know you talked a little bit about your excitement around AI agents. Looking ahead, what other emerging trends in data and AI are you most excited about?
Yeah. So earlier we talked about the 2x2, right? The list versus the volume of tasks. So I think now AI is getting better. The models are getting better. Foundational models are getting better. People have figured out different ways to train and fine tune these models. So the tasks that they're allocating the AI is moving from lower risk to higher risk, right? And the volume that they were the use case that were focused on high volume. Now these use cases are changing the even lower volume tasks, right? Because AI is cheaper now. The compute cost, the processing cost is so much lower than when 2 years ago that AI can perform lower volume tasks cheaper. So now why not just have AI do everything? For example, the RFP process, right? It's low volume responding to RFPs. It's not as high volume as analyzing logs. But AI is better at it and it's cheaper, and why not just have AI do it and it's faster? So I think that's the overall overarching trend that I'm seeing. But like 3 very specific trends that I'm very excited by, or 3 spaces that I'm very excited by in data and AI are data engineering, AI agents for security, and AI for creative tasks. In data engineering, I'm seeing a developerization or developerification of data engineering. So data engineering is basically how do you bring data from different places into a different place? How do you move data? How do you manipulate data, transform data? And how do you use the data, right? So I'm seeing a developerification of data engineering. And this is something that has happened to a few other problems before data engineering. It happened with developer operations, DevOps, right? Companies like Pulumi, companies like Capstone.io have made it easier for developers to do DevOps by not worrying about it. The same thing happened with security. Like Panther allows you to write security rules in Python, and it abstracts all of the complexity behind that. So developers can now manage security of their applications in a language they understand, right? They don't have to hire a security team. I think the same thing is happening with data pipelines now. Manage your data without being a data engineer or a data DevOps engineer. And so companies like Quill Data, Outland, I'm talking to both of these companies. They're doing fantastic work. And as I understand what they do, I think this is a trend that's going to accelerate because data is becoming even more important in the new generative AI world. The second trend that I'm very excited about, the second problem space, is using AI and agents for security. similar to what NFACT does. It's using AI and agents for security. So it's different from security for AI. I think when AI started, everyone was worried about how do I, secure my AI? How do I not pass data that is sensitive to AI? I think that's still a problem, but not as much as it was made out to be initially, because as people have gotten more comfortable, solutions have come up. And if you think about the security, right? If you just think about the security team, the security ops team, they're so overburdened with work, right? No SecOps team says we have like a lot of time on our plate. So they have to deal with a high signal to noise ratio, a low signal to noise ratio. Have to figure that out. The speed of their action is very important. So what AI does is that it synthesizes security data, and agents help close vulnerabilities much faster than human would have. Of course, you need a human in the loop, going back to our earlier point, a human in the loop in the workforce to make sure, wherever AI fails, there's human oversight. But I think using AI and agents in security is going to be a very exciting transformation. I know all the existing vendors from logging the security and looking at AI, but I know there's a lot of new startups that are also making it easier, for example, NFactor. And then for creative tasks, right? AI for creative tasks. Creative tasks have very few rules, right? There are more like guardrails, such as, if you're talking about advertisement, then what is the brand guideline? What is the creative guidelines? But other than that, there's no real rule. You need something that is imaginative, right? Between the lines. So using AI to create content, to transform content from one format to another, for example, images to text, to scale this content, how can you take one source piece, how can you take a podcast, make it into a video, make it into clips, make it into blogs, right? I think that's going to be incredible. Instead of hiring 20 people to do that, as you do today, you can have AI do that. And also test, right? Because testing is a huge part of, especially in if you're not really sure of your messaging. Testing messaging and testing content becomes easier with AI. It's a huge part of finding the right audience and message and channel for you. So I think these three, data engineering, AI agent security, and AI for creative tasks, are the trends I'm most excited about right now.
On a final note, I want to ask you, if you could wave a magic wand and change the way venture capital functions, what would be on your wish list?
Oh man. So I've been on both sides, and as a founder, I have worked with some amazing venture capitalists who are very smart, who are a delight to work with through the entire process. But I've also kind of figured out some ways to improve the experience for a founder. So the first thing I'd like to tell my friends is stop being SDRs. Stop sending generic cold email. Stop just grabbing coffee at Blue Bottle with founders. Founders are humans. When I'm founding a company, and like when VCs reach out and they just want to talk for 15-20 minutes, I'm making a decision on my time allocation, right? So make a connection, right? Cultivate a relationship. You don't have to talk to them about investment when you want to talk about investment. Just see how you can add value, right? How you can help, how can you personalize the whole experience? How can you make the experience of working with a VC as a founder more enjoyable? The second way I think we can all improve is by having a prepared mind. Um, be like a heat-seeking missile, not a cluster bomb. Don't just spray and pray and see what you can attract and where you can make a dent. You should in fact have a thesis, have a point of view, and then you're finding the right target, the right founder, the right company, right, based on your thesis, and that makes it better for both you. Is that it reduces your cost, your operation cost, the time you spend, but also it makes it better for the founder because the founders know that you're not somebody who's new to the space. It also becomes easier to pitch when you're finally ready with the startup. You want to pitch the startup to your investment team. It makes it easier because you have a prepared mind. You already have the facts, and then you're just plugging in the company. So there's a theory I have, which is around the investor company fit. Then we have the product market fit, we have the message market fit. I think investor company fit is a huge thing as well in venture capital. So you have to know, like, are you the right person for this company? And then finally, like, I think making sourcing and selection fun. So show up with market research, show up with customer interviews, show up with competitor intel when you talk with founders, right? When I talk to founders, I've already tried their product and I've actually used it. So when I give feedback, and I was a product manager before this, so I can give them feedback from an operator builder point of view. And also like founder point of view, and if you're talking about go-to-market, do all of these things. Spend time in the space and in the product because for a founder, it makes that whole process of sourcing and selection a lot more enjoyable and gives them value. Whether you invest in them or not, it gives them value, and they will want to work with you, and they will refer their friends to you. Right. And network is such a huge part of Silicon Valley. Whether it's network you already have or network you build by working with founders. So whenever I work with founders, I tell them I'm your friend and your partner in the whole process. Count on me, ask me for things you need. It's not just a one-way process. And I would love to see more and more VCs doing that.
Ayush Khanna, everyone. Thanks so much. That was very insightful.
Thanks, Rick. Always great talking to you.